Gauranga Nityananda. Welcome everyone. Sorry for the delay. We were going to use a different system. It didn't work. We didn't have the right connection, so we're using our old system, and that's why we're delayed. But it is well worth the wait, because I have a wonderful story for you. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't. But I thought we'd start with a nice story because everyone loves stories. At least everywhere I go, everyone loves stories. So I want to welcome you. Who do we have here tonight? We have Folded, who says, I cannot see any video. Video is now working. It started. There is echo. Oh, no. You get to hear everything twice. Welcome to Manjesh Madhu. Okay, is there still an echo? We are wondering why. Are you still hearing an echo, 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 echo? No, I'm only kidding. Kidding. Are you still hearing an echo? Is the video good? Can you see? Can you hear? Let us know, so our technical engineer can get it going. Of course, we do the same thing every week, and you know, some weeks it works and some weeks it doesn't, because we're at the mercy of technology. Okay? Well, I guess we have to do this. If it's not working, what shall we do? Reboot or whatever? We'll just go with this. Okay, I'm going to tell you the story. Once upon a time, there was a man who loved mangoes. You guys like mangoes? Prabhupada said mango is the king of fruit. So, this man loved mangoes so much, so what he would do, he would find a mango tree that had the best mangoes. And then he would climb all the way up the tree, spotting the perfect mango. He'd climb up and up and up, and he'd go high, and he'd find this one mango, climb way up, and he'd get the mango. Because he was a mango fanatic, so he wanted to get the best mango. He wouldn't settle for the second best mango, he needed the best mango. So one day, he climbs the tree, very, very high, because there's a very sweet and special mango. Way on top of this huge tree, catches the mango, grabs the mango, picks the mango, begins to come down. And as he's coming down, his shirt gets caught on a branch. And then he's left hanging. He can't hold on to any other branches. This branch is like hanging off the tree. So he's hanging by his shirt. He's very secure, he's not going to fall, but he can't move, he can't touch any other branches, he can't swing, he can't get down. So he begins yelling to the people in the village, please, help me, I'm stuck in this tree, I can't get down, please, please, please. And so gradually the people in the village hear him, so they see him up in the tree, and they get a ladder, and they climb to the ladder, but the ladder's not high enough, and they don't know what to do. Because none of the people in the village are able to climb up the tree. So they think, we have to get the sadhu, and he'll know what to do. So they call the sadhu, and the sadhu comes. And this sadhu is a very interesting sadhu. He's very, very intelligent, very thoughtful. So, to the surprise of everyone, the sadhu picks up a rock, and he throws it at the man in the tree. The people are like thinking, what are you doing? Throwing a rock at this poor fellow, he's sitting in the tree, and you're throwing... And you can't say anything. The sadhu means a saintly person. The sadhu is highly respected, so you can't say anything to the sadhu. That would be disrespectful. Sadhu picks up another rock and throws it at this man. People can't figure out what's wrong. Is this sadhu mad? So obviously the man is becoming angry. And the man's saying, I'm going to get you. The man's hanging in the tree and he's saying, I'm going to get you. Sadhu throws another rock. He says, that's it, I'm going to come down and get you. The sadhu leaves. What happens? The man is so angry, he there's so much resentment within him. He wants to retaliate against what happened to him with such intensity that somehow or other he gets down from the tree. You like that story? Nice story, isn't it? So, what's the moral of the story? The moral is obvious. The man could not figure how to get down from the tree, but when he was angry enough, or we could say in general, when the desire is strong enough, then we figure out how to do it. Or as they say, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. So the reason I'm relating this story is because I wanted to talk tonight about difficulties or obstacles we face in our daily lives, particularly here in relation to japa, but what we're talking about you can relate to any obstacle. And one of the things that I see in my own life, and I see in the lives of other devotees, is that as we learn how to improve, we still face obstacles in implementing what we learn. I know I should do this, but the situation may not be right, or I may be confronted with difficulties or situations that make it difficult to implement what I know I should do. And in these classes that we're giving, I'm teaching devotees, I'm teaching you, you're all here, and you're learning different techniques, different attitudes, ways of thinking. You're learning ways of sitting. You're learning about how to deal with your body. You're learning about how to deal with your mind, your emotions, your attitudes. You're learning ways to improve your chanting. But still, that doesn't mean that every situation you're in every day when you chant makes it easy to do that. Some situations make it extremely difficult. So what do we do? Well, I'll tell you another story, because I know you love stories so much. I'm going to tell you another story, and I'm just going to check who's here. Okay. Everybody's here? Everyone's okay? Everybody can hear me? Okay. Folded. He was laughing at that story. He liked that. But it's profound. Where there's a will, there's a way. Sadhu was very smart. Okay, I'm going to tell you another story. There was a... Okay, you're all still here? You can all hear me. Good. There was a baseball player. He was a batter. For those of you who are outside of America who aren't familiar with baseball, I guess it's a perverted reflection of cricket, or cricket's a perverted reflection of baseball, or they're both perverted reflections of something else that I don't know. But anyway, they use a bat. And a pitcher throws a ball, and the batter hits the ball. So a coach, a professional coach, an outside coach from beyond the team was hired to help to help a batter who had been a very good batter, very good hitter, but he was in a slump. So they were facing a game. It was coming up on the weekend, and the coach said, "This pitcher, how good is this pitcher that you're facing?" Pitcher is one who throws the ball. He said, "The pitcher is one of the best pitchers I've ever faced." I said, "Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good is this pitcher?" He said, "On a scale of 1 to 10, he's 11. He's off the charts good." I said, "Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good is your batting?" He said, "About a 7. So that immediately he could understand. If I'm a 7 and the pitcher's a 10, there's no chance. So obviously, he had to bring his batting up to at least a 10 or 11 if this pitcher was actually off the charts 11. So he knew, okay, I'm facing something which is greater than where I stand at the present. How does this relate to chanting? Well, it's my experience that oftentimes we move in our life on a certain level. If we want to use these numbers 1 to 10, let's say we operate on level 7. And let's say that's fine if the obstacles we face are 7 or less, then we can at least have equal strength to deal with our obstacles, or we'll be stronger. If your obstacles are only at a 5 and you're at a 7, no problem. But if you're at a 7 and your obstacles are at an 8, then what do you have to do? You have to rise to a 9. That's all obvious. But what is not obvious is that in our life, when we're trying to apply principles of bhakti, and particularly as we're discussing here, principles for improving our japa, sometimes we face situations in which the obstacles are at an 8 or a 9 or a 10. And we enter at a 4 or a 5 or a 6. And often what we do is surrender, not to Krishna, to the obstacle. Well, I'm at a 6 and the obstacle's an 8. I guess it's not going to go well today. Have any of you ever been in a situation like that? Maybe you weren't aware that you were in a situation like that, or you weren't aware, or you haven't been aware that you deal with situations like that. But think now, have you ever dealt with a situation like that, where you confront it and you think, well, I can't execute my devotional service, or I won't be able to chant my rounds as well as I'd like to, because the difficulties I'm facing in this situation are greater than what I can deal with. Anyone ever experienced that? There is some loud popping noises in the audio. Those are transcendental ecstatic symptoms when I speak, which we can't stop, I don't think. Or maybe the camera's in ecstasy and it can't stop, or the microphone is in ecstasy. So folded, you say folded hands, Anjali? He says, yes, he's had that experience. We all have that experience. So why am I presenting this? I'm presenting this because I want to bring this to your awareness, to your consciousness. That when you set an intention to improve your chanting, or an intention to apply principles, tools, techniques, attitudes, strategies, whatever you want to call it, to improve your chanting that you're learning, either from myself or others, from Srila Prabhupada's teachings, often you're going to face situations which make it difficult to do that. What do? At that point, one of the things that you can do, or what I'm suggesting you do, is that you realize, okay, now I'm up against something which is going to require more effort, more energy than I usually put out in my chanting. Or it's going to require perhaps a different way of thinking or a different strategy. Why is this important? Because I find that in my chanting there are certain things which affect the quality of my chanting that I often think I don't have control of, but I do. What are some of those things? Sometimes when we're chanting, our mind is preoccupied with thoughts of what we have to do today or what happened in the day. And sometimes those thoughts are so energized and so frequent that we find it difficult, or perhaps nearly impossible, to focus on the Maha Mantra. We've all experienced that. That's the nature of having a material mind. It's the nature of living the kinds of lives we live. Most of us are very busy, and being busy, we have a lot of things floating around in our minds. We have a lot of things to think about. You've all got a lot of things to do tomorrow. And when you sit down to chant sometimes in the morning, those things you have to do preoccupy you. And in fact, a lot of times, you're not even hearing the mantra, you're just thinking about those things. Planning how you're going to do them. We all face that. And then when that happens, sometimes we tell ourselves, oh, I am not hearing the mantra because I have so many things on my mind. It's so difficult. And then we kind of surrender to that. And that's where we go. The purpose of presenting this is to tell you, or is to make you aware you don't have to do that. No, you don't have to. It just is going to require more effort on your part to deal with that. It may require a different strategy. What I am suggesting here is that you should train yourself that red flags should now go off in your mind. All these red flags are going off. No, I cannot chant this way. There is a way to do this. I want to digress just slightly. It's along the topic, but there's a way to do this. One of the ways to do this is to write down what I call non-negotiables. Non-negotiables are things which you don't negotiate, things which you will not compromise. So if you establish non-negotiables, and you may want to take notes, because we're not going to do it now. If this were a live seminar, perhaps we would stop and do it, but if we stop now and new people come on, they won't know what we're doing, and they'll just be looking at me not talking and wondering, what happened to Mahatma? Is he stunned in ecstasy and he can't speak? What is it? So, just make a note. Write down your japa non-negotiables after this show. What are your non-negotiables? Non-negotiables are things that you don't want to accept. That you say, there's no negotiation on this. This is not acceptable within my japa. And I'm suggesting here, for example, one non-negotiable will be to be preoccupied with what happened earlier in the day or what's going to happen later in the day. Be preoccupied with planning and thinking about things that you have done or will be doing. Okay, that's a strategy. So when your mind is occupied in that way, a red flag goes off. And then you tap into that strategy. You remember, this is my non-negotiable. And then because it's difficult, because perhaps, let's say you're very busy or something's coming up the next day and you have a lot to do, and your mind's occupied, what do? You're operating on a level 7. You're going to need to operate probably on a level 10 when it's really bad. Maybe you have to make an effort of 10 to put those thoughts to rest, because they're not going to rest easily. One thing I heard that impressed me, terribly impressed me, was a person was explaining the difference between wanting to do something and being committed. Yeah, I believe I've spoken about this before, but I think right now is a good time to talk about it. When we're committed to do something, then we figure out how to do it because there's a commitment there. When we're not committed and we just say, I want to do it, then we may not do it because we're not fully committed to it. So that might be a way of looking at the difference between being on the level 7 or level 10. If we're on the level 7, the obstacle is 8, and we want to achieve something, but we're not willing to go to 9, then we could say I'm not fully committed. But if I'm fully committed, then I'll be willing to do what it takes to go to 10. I want to tell a story that illustrates that this is the way Prabhupada was thinking, and this is the way he wanted us to think. Another story. Tonight is story night. You are so lucky you get to hear more stories. So, once, on a morning walk, the devotees were explaining to Prabhupada that there was a very sincere devotee who was having difficulty following the principles and practices of Krishna consciousness. And they were elaborating somewhat on his difficulties. And then Prabhupada was saying that he's strongly under the grip of ignorance because he's not able to follow. And then again they were saying, but he's sincere. And as the conversation progressed, basically they were saying that he's finding it difficult not to give in to his weakness. And I think the devotees were thinking that Prabhupada would understand that here's a person who has a weakness, and he also has his weakness is that he gives in to his difficulties. But Prabhupada didn't accept that. And he said, why are you giving into your weakness? In other words, the weakness, giving into the weakness, they thought was a valid excuse. And Prabhupada's reply was, why are you giving into weakness? Weakness must be corrected. It must be rectified. And so they weren't thinking that way. They were thinking it was justifiable that, okay, I'm a person who has weaknesses. I give into my weaknesses. I guess they were thinking it's kind of like his makeup, his nature, what we'd say in Sanskrit, his bhav, or the mode that he's in. Perhaps he's just strongly in the mode of ignorance. But Prabhupada's attitude was different. Basically what Prabhupada was saying, if you recognize it's a weakness, then why don't you do something about it? So it's the same idea. In other words, okay, he's operating on a level 3, he's got problems that are operating on a higher level, and they're saying, well, Prabhupada, he's only at a 3 and his problems are at a 7, so that's why he can't follow him. And basically Prabhupada's saying, well, why doesn't he come to an 8? So it's the same idea. That was the kind of determination that Prabhupada had personally in his life, and that's the kind of determination he wanted us to have. In fact, Prabhupada once recited the story of Dhruva Maharaja, which probably you all know, but if you don't, I'll just briefly summarize it. Dhruva Maharaja had a desire to see Krishna. He was only 5 years old. And the desire was so strong that he went to the forest and he performed all kinds of austerities to do it. He eventually came to the point where he was eating infrequently, and then maybe eating once a month, and perhaps he didn't eat for a while. I forget the details, but then he eventually came to breathe infrequently and then stopped breathing for a while. In other words, he was extremely determined. He was ready to do anything. He was committed to the nth degree. He was the definition of commitment. And in a purport there, Prabhupada said, to be Krishna conscious, we should be as determined as Dhruva Maharaja. And so what's that kind of determination? Well, it's the kind of determination, well, what my goal is set, and whatever is going to whatever gets in the way of my goal, well, I'll figure out some way to deal with it because I want to become Krishna conscious. So what we're talking about here is how to do the same thing with our japa. Let's look at another possible scenario that we run into. Tired. I'm just tired. I get up in the morning and I'm tired. Or maybe a corollary or an aspect of being tired is the mind's tired. I don't feel like it. If you ever got up in the morning and it's time for you to chant and you just don't feel like it, or should I say, is there anybody out there who's never felt that way? Anybody? Have you never had a day when you've got up in the morning and you just felt, I don't feel like chanting now? If you've never felt that way, this doesn't relate to you. If you have, then this does relate to you. So sometimes we may not feel like chanting. We'll go through that at one point or another. If we don't feel like chanting, what do? Do we just not chant? No, there are things we can do. Even if they're somewhat artificial, there are things we can do to somehow create enthusiasm for chanting. Even just to tell myself, I really want to chant. I relish the holy name. Chanting is my life and soul. This is what I really love. I may not be feeling it right now, but in my heart of hearts, this is my life and soul. It's the life and soul of all nectar. Yes, I'm going to chant. This is nectar. This is what I want to do. Just somehow snap out of it. We have the tendency, when we don't feel that way, just to kind of surrender to the feeling. You know, like little kids sometimes, when you ask them to do something, they go, no, I don't feel like it. No, I don't want to. No, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to. Don't bother me. I'm not going to do that. So sometimes that's what our mind's saying. Okay, it's time to chant. I don't want to. I don't feel like it. So that's another opportunity to do something. Say some affirmation. I love to chant. I want to chant. Chanting's my life and soul. Stand up. Jai! I get to chant. It's another day. Krishna's given me another day, another opportunity to say His holy name, to relish His holy name, to pray to Him, somehow or other. We can do something. We're at a 5, and the opposition is at a 7. Go to an 8. What else? What else happens? We're in an environment which is not conducive. Have you ever been in an environment which is not conducive to your japa, and you're chanting horrible rounds because you can't really do much better in that environment, and you don't leave that environment because for some reason you don't feel like leaving it? I don't know why you wouldn't feel like it, but I think we all run into those situations. We have to leave that environment. The environment is like at a 9 or a 10. You can't even overcome it. Sometimes the environment is so bad you can't chant good rounds in that environment. You have to leave it. You have to find another environment, another situation. Sometimes the environment is just you're too close to your computer and you want to do your email. You want to surf the internet. It's just disturbing you. You have to get out of that environment. It could be so many things. And anyway, the point is there's so many obstacles that we may face from time to time. Don't surrender to the obstacles. Surrender to Krishna. Don't surrender to the obstacles. Surrender to the process.